Hey, we'll see you on Monday. Transitioning here, I think it's safe to say the Philadelphia 76ers have hit rock bottom already 1 month into the season. The Sixers are 2-12, good for an NBA's worst. Philly continues to battle from injuries from their stars Tyrese Maxey, Paul George going down, while Joel Embiid continues to take a cautious approach with his minutes. Earlier this week, ESPN broke the story of young guard Maxey calling out Embiid for his actions and how it affects the locker room. Embiid responded to that story saying, quote, "Whoever leaked that is a real bleep. But even then, we talked about a lot of things. I don't want to get into the details, but that whole thing probably took 30 seconds. I need to be better. I need to be perfect. I need to be on point, which I'm going to do." Here's Paul George's thoughts on the story leaking.
I don't know how the hell Shams got that story or how that even leaked, especially it being like, some of it being like kind of word for word, or not necessarily word for word, but quoted. Mm-hmm. That was the crazy part about it.
All right, S.A., let's break this down. Do you feel like the leak is the bigger issue in the locker room than the actual story itself?
I think the leak is the bigger issue only from the standpoint that, you know, players like RC and Cam can speak to this better than me, but I've been covering locker rooms for close to 30 years. And when you have somebody that's willing to violate that trust, that's emblematic of a deeper rooted issue. We know that Joel Embiid is unhealthy perpetually. Mm-hmm. We know that Paul George has suffered a lot of injuries throughout his career. But we could be here, we've worked here and all of this other stuff. There's certain things I'm never doing because I got love for y'all. I would never betray that trust. There's a principle of not betraying the trust, but there's also a love and affection that I have for the people that I work with. I ain't doing something like that. And so when something like this happens, it's not just about somebody running their mouth. It's somebody not caring about the impact that it could potentially have on the character and the reputation of the person that was being talked about in that fashion. In this case, it would be Joel Embiid. And for Joel Embiid to be perceived as this affable, fun-loving, superstar talent of a player, all right, when he's healthy, he's a monster. Nobody could stop him. He's one of the best in the business. But for Tyrese Maxey to say that to him is not as big of an issue like Joel Embiid acknowledged, because you know you've been late, you know you've been tardy, and you got called on it. That's not the big issue. The big issue is that somebody has such little concern for how it would make Joel Embiid look that the superstar talent of the Philadelphia 76ers was put on Front Street, not just for his injuries or his lack of availability, but piggybacking off of that column that Marcus Hayes wrote about him, which was wrong, by the way, when you brought up his deceased brother and your son. He crossed the line in doing that, but he didn't cross the line in just saying, I don't have faith in him because he's never ready, right? For that, to piggyback off, for these comments, for this source material, to piggyback off of that column is an indictment against Joel Embiid. And for a teammate to let that out, it speaks to a far bigger issue than just the complaint itself.
I'll take it a step further. Somebody did this purposely.
Yeah.
I'm not a player that's having a conversation with Stephen A. Unless me and Stephen A. are friends and you're my mentor, having a conversation about what's going on in the locker room. And if I have that conversation with you, it's because I trust it will stay between you and
Absolutely.
And normally when you're talking to somebody that's a part of the media, they ask you, can this be on the record? So for you to go to Shams and say, hey, look, I want this to be on the record. This is what happens. You're purposely giving him this information so it does get out about Joel Embiid, right? And this is the thing about players only meetings. They're supposed to be the thing of lore. What happens is you only talk about the players only meeting when you win a Super Bowl or when you win a Larry O'Brien trophy. And you say, man, I remember back in the early parts of the season when we only had 2 wins, we had a meeting with Joel and Tyrese Maxey said this, and this led to a championship. And Joel totally changed the way he approached this team and he became a great leader. That's when people find out about that meeting. But when you go in and when you go out and you purposely make sure that the outside public knows exactly what was said to your star player, you're doing that purposely to give the world the perception of him that you want the world to know. So it's a huge deal. And it says that there's a huge disconnect, not only on this team, but between the individuals that are on it. And you can't win when you got snakes like this in your locker room.
No question.
I feel like you guys the idea that Tyrese Maxey at 24 years old has to tell Joel Embiid 9 years in, former MVP, that he needs to be on time is an issue. Like, we're killing the messenger here. Shams, Adam Schefter, Jeff Pass, there's a whole industry because people run their mouths and they talk and they whisper and they tell secrets and things like that. So yes, is it some kind of betrayal? Maybe, but it also sounds like maybe someone is incredibly frustrated that at this part of the process, on a team that is underwhelmed based on how much money they've spent, based on how much time they've put in, you're having to tell the face of your franchise, please engage. Please show up on time. Please do your part as a leader. That feels like a bigger problem to me than the fact that someone was around and leaked it.
Go ahead, Cam.
I see a situation where, El, you said it earlier, or we all have mentioned that things being an issue because we're not winning. This is a winning issue. Had they been one of the top teams, we wouldn't even have this discussion. There's an unspoken word or footnotes in every relationship, especially if it's an intimate relationship, even in business, especially on teams, that what's family business is family's business. You don't go outside talking about personal things, about this or that. Joel Embiid has earned the right. I used to have a coach that always tell me, hey, you got to earn the right to do certain things. Some players have earned the right to be late. It sounds crazy, but understanding walking in as Joel Embiid and walking in as John Doe is two different type of tones and discussions. Walking in as George Pickens and walking in as Pickens George is two different discussions. So let's stop the narrative of saying that we like, is it right or is right? It's wrong or is wrong. Everybody has different rules for different people. But when there's something's getting leaked because of the obvious, they're not winning, that's more of the issue. Yes, you have a rat in the locker room. That's lame. You don't do that. That's an unspoken word and the unspoken truth. And you have to identify that, and you got to check that and nip that in the bud as soon as possible.
As somebody, I've been covering the NBA, for example, for 30 years. Allen Iverson, Kobe, Shaq, Jordan. I mean, the list goes on and on. I covered all of these cats. None of them ever violated locker room code. None of them. And I mean none of them. It's a certain line that you don't cross. When I've had players come to me and leak information to me about another player, they told that player, damn right, I'm going to say this about you. Look for it. You see what I'm saying? Now, they didn't want their name publicly for for the public to know, but they let me know, and they let the player know, I'm going to say this about you because you need to be outed because something wrong with you. That's different. That's not a snake. That's somebody looking at you and saying, look, man, there's a problem with you. And you need to get addressed, and you ain't listening to us, so maybe you gonna listen to the public scrutiny that we gonna bring down upon you because you hard-headed. That's entirely different than somebody smiling in your face, acting like, they all in for you, being your teammate, they your brother, they down for you. They riding down with you and all of that stuff, and then all of a sudden they turn back and you read something in the paper, and then you don't know who it is. Quick story.
That's the problem.
Quick story. Check this out. This happened years ago.
Teammate.
Shaq and all of them would testify to this. Somebody said something about Kobe Bryant. This is a true story. Somebody said something about Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant walked into the locker room before a game to each and every single player at the stall and picked the newspaper and stuffed it in their face. He said, you said this, MFer? You said this, MFer? You said this, MFer? Went down the line. Told every one of them. Because he was letting them know, listen, one of y'all lying to me. One of y'all, you ain't going to admit it, but I want you to know what I think of you. And he rolled up on them just like that. That's how serious something like this is.
Stephen A., I understand what you're saying, but can both things be true to L's point? Because he said he needs to be better.
Yes, both things are true. Yeah. But the point, and
you have to have a team meeting and encourage your coach to coach you harder.
Hey, I'm going to say this, though. There are problems within teams that persist or exist. We had to have one of those meetings before, and it was about one of our star players. And he was actually not behaving in the way he hadn't always behaved. It was just contributing, or we felt like now it was contributing to losing. So now we got to do something different. Yeah. And so Joel Embiid may have earned the right to be this sort of player, and it may have started to continue and persist more. But now that they're losing, you ask him, hey, Joel, we need you to lead in a different way.
All right,
But
we got
don't
some
leak the
breaking
story,
news.
though.
Hold on, Cam. We got some breaking news, Cam. Hold on for a second.
Hot
sorry.
topic. Hal, I'll come to you on this one. Daniel Jones.
Thank you for watching so far. Leave your comment below. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any detail. A hug and see you next time.